Here we go again. What's going on? I don't know. We're about to find out. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Hey everyone, here I am again. My only question to everybody at this point in time is what is going on? That's the nature of this episode this week. What is going on? Found a few things that just seem to be a little interesting. Some things that I wasn't really paying attention to, other things that I found that are just simply disturbing, and I have a question, and I want to know if anybody out there also questions things like this. What's going on? First thing I gotta tell you is there's some definite strange foods out there, and I don't know what people are thinking when they come up with this stuff. And I'm gonna tell you a couple of those, and for sure I'm gonna have a video with me actually tasting one of these oddball things I found. Only thing about it is, I've been putting this one off for probably, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 weeks, because I'm just a little bit leery about this one. I'm really not quite sure, and, well, I'm just gonna sort of play it by ear and do it anyway. As they say, I'm gonna take one for the team. And I was very strategic in which one I'm gonna take. So when it comes down to it, hopefully it'll be strangely, surprisingly good, but I don't know. I just don't know. Hopefully, at the very least, it'll be a little bit comfortable. But you never know when it comes to food, especially when it's food in different forms. That's why I want to know what we're doing, what's going on here, because it just some things just shouldn't be in certain forms, and that's one of my biggest problems I'm gonna have with this episode going down. Also, I have a question of, you know, a little bit of summer work. I'm going to talk about that as far as the stuff that the kids have to do over the summer. It's interesting. I have a very unique take, I believe, on this subject, and I can't wait to get into it. And then there's a very unusual and almost disturbing thing that I noticed that just happened to have crossed my mind earlier this summer. And when it hit me, I had to actually pull it up on my phone and see if I was really thinking that it was what it appeared to be. And truthfully, when it comes right down to it, the thing that I noticed is it's very interesting. And I'd like to ask that question, what's going on with that? Because it seems that I don't know if it's gone unnoticed, or maybe one of the items that I noticed from the past that seems to mesh up with this other one. Maybe it's just the one is just sort of out of style now and nobody really pays any attention to it, but me, I don't know. I thought about it, and because I thought about it, I'd like to see it in how other people are thinking about it after I say it, and then hopefully other people will take a little bit of a look at what I'm talking about, and you'll realize that there's something going on here. And my question is, what is it? What is going on with this particular pairing of items that's a little bit similar in look, but clearly different purposes? And it's weird how they seem to just kind of they just kind of match. I'll go into it further when the main event comes up. But right now, it's about time for me to fill in the blanks. Okay, time to fill in the blanks. The blank that I have that needs to be filled in is going back to the NFL season, which is coming up rapidly at this point. When this episode is released on August 24th, which just so happens to be the day that I'm recording it. Yeah, I'm actually recording day of again. Just what's happened for the last couple weeks. What are you gonna do? Time permitting, and situation just happened to work out that it's just easier for me the last couple weeks to record the day of. So that just means if you listen to it today, you got as fresh an episode as you're ever going to get. But anyway, back to the point. Fill in the blank. The blank that is being filled in is about the football season, like I said. My 49ers look as, again, a potential contender for the crown. However, Christian McCaffrey was the cover guy for Madden. So, my question is, will the Madden curse take a major effect on Christian McCaffrey this year? The blank that I'm going to fill in on this question is hopefully not. I don't have a crystal ball because it's still in the shop. So I can't say for sure if the Madden curse is going to affect him. But all I can do is hope that it won't. So the question is, will the Madden curse affect Christian McCaffrey this year? And the only answer I have for that is hopefully it won't. And now it's time to get into this main event. And trust me, the bell is ringing right now, and I am really, really interested in going into this main event today. Turns out that the subject is what is going on, and I need to know. I can only speculate or guess what's going on, and for the life of me, I don't think I'm right. And I don't think anybody really has an idea of what is going on when it comes to the subjects that I'm about to approach today. First and foremost, I'm going to go into one that I noticed earlier this summer. Something that is very, very similar. Two objects with totally different purposes that look identical. However, one is a smaller version and the other is a little bigger. Now, I am not a drinker. I've never drank before. But I know what Corona looks like. That light gold beer inside the glass bottle, most popular in commercials, just Fast and the Furious, Dominic Toretto in the first one told Brian he could have any brew in the house as long as it was a Corona. Now, when it comes to Corona, it has a uniquely shaped bottle. Small on the top, gets wider on the bottom. And specifically, it's clear. The glass is very clear, and you have the trademark blue-white colors that are on it, right? Now, I need you to think about that shape in the bottle of a Corona. And then I need you to peel off the label. What do you have? Just a glass bottle with the gold colored beer inside, and that's what it just looks like. Just no label, right? Now I'm going to go into another object. One that's probably the size of, I guess, one of those erasers that you put on top of a pencil. You know the ones. Not the ones you hold on the outside and just the pink ones, but the little ones. They come in a whole bunch of different colors, and you put them on top of the pencil once the eraser is gone. That size. Now take your Corona bottle that I told you to store in your memory for just a second, the one that the label is peeled off, and imagine a Corona bottle of the size of that eraser. Same color of liquid on the inside. Just the whole bottle just shrunk down to the size of that eraser. What I'm trying to describe to you is something that when I was in school was very, very popular amongst the people who were running around Southern Regional High School and middle school. It was both, and there was no rhyme or reason. Just people would find these objects and would enjoy using them. What I'm describing are stink bombs. They were small glass vials that were shaped essentially like Corona bottles, and the color of the liquid on the inside was about the same color that you'd get from a Corona bottle, the beer in the Corona, only they were encapsulated inside of those small glass vials, like I said. Now, in order to use the stink bomb, what you'd have to do is you'd have to drop it on the floor and or slide it on the floor and step on it or throw it hard enough so the thin glass could break, and it would release a terrible smell of like rotten eggs, and it would linger for probably 5 minutes, maybe a little more, depending on the area that you drop it in and how ventilation is in that spot. Now, through the halls of Southern Regional Middle School and Southern Regional High School, many, many, many people dropped stink bombs periodically. And, of course, when you're changing classes, something the size of an eraser dropping on the floor in a group of people, there's a real chance that the person who dropped it probably didn't even step on it because of all the people who were walking around. But now here comes the point that I'm trying to make. The design of a stink bomb only occurred to me again this summer when I was watching a Corona commercial. And for some reason, all these years later, I haven't had any stink bombs since I was in 8th grade. And I never even used them because I was afraid of running out of them. So I just held on to them and held on to them and held on to them. Whereas other people would use them and they'd just go buy more. But I never did because I would be more nervous of having an opportunity to get more of them, so I didn't waste any. And of course, because of that, I ended up losing them and never using them. Now, for some reason, that Corona commercial made me think about the stink bombs because their design is literally the same. And I got a really good laugh because I thought about it. If you put the same chemical that was inside of a stink bomb, the small ones, inside of a Corona bottle, that size would make for a very, very interesting smelling ordeal. And I imagine it would be much more difficult to hide who did it, especially this day and age with all the cameras everywhere. But to make a point, what is going on with the fact that the stink bomb looks exactly like the beer? Like, exactly like it, only a very small version. The person who came up with that design for the bottle of the Corona and the container for the stink bomb must have been working hand in hand, and they figured, hey, you know what? This is a good design for both. It's unique, and we could use it for either or. We just have to scale it down a little bit for the stink bomb. or maybe we have to just scale it up a bit for the Corona bottle. I don't know who came up with which first, but either way, I found it very, very interesting that the Stink Bomb and the Corona bottle look almost similar if you take the label off of the Corona bottle. It's just amazing. Now, for any of you out there who don't know what stink bombs are, my description is as accurate as it can get, but I would certainly say maybe you should check it out, Google it, find out what the stink bomb looks like. And it's interesting because you could actually find it on, where was it at? I think they were on Amazon or somewhere like that, where I actually went and Googled it when I started really paying attention again. And I wanted to just have another look at the stink bombs and see that, yeah, they do, in fact, look just like that. And it was funny that commercial that I had seen over the middle of the summer made me think of the stink bombs and how similar they look to the Corona bottle. It's really fascinating. And I would certainly would say that you should probably have a look at that. You should. It's fascinating. It really is. Well, next thing I want to know about, and please explain this to me, because I think that kids have a lot of things that they have to do during the school year, and just like adults, eventually they get burned out from all that work and they need a little bit of a rest so they can recalibrate and refocus on more tasks for the year ahead. Now, it seems that since my kids have been in school, they've had summer work programs where they've had to read a book, do some math and some vocabulary here and there. Don't get me wrong, I think that it's not the worst idea in order to maintain what you've already got and retain the information that you learn. However, it's the quantity of this work which is crazy to me. Now, my kids were able to break this stuff up all summer long and finished probably, because right now it's the 24th of August. They go back to school next week, so it's like, I don't know, 27th, 28th. They finished up their work probably around the 14th or 15th, somewhere in the middle of August. And they took maybe a break of 2 weeks in the beginning where they didn't do any work, and then there was just work every day. Every single day they had something to do. Vocabulary, reading, math, multiple books. And don't get me wrong, I think that reading is a good thing. It just seems that forced reading, making this stuff part of your grade when it's your summer, that just stings to me. It really does. Now, to make it a little bit more close to home for me, now it's one thing to say that the kids had to do this work, but I remember back when I was a junior going into my senior year. Good old Southern Regional decided to institute summer reading and have it count as a portion of your grade. Now, at the time, Southern was going through a transitional period as far as credits for graduation. My class was at the low end of the credits required for graduation. And all the classes before it had similar numbers of credits needed to graduate. There was a point where, for my class in particular, and the class before mine, and I think even the one after mine, where we had no requirement to take more than 2 history classes, had to take 4 maths, had to take 2 sciences, and then they changed it where you had to take all those classes all 4 years. So you had to have 4 of each, which required you to have more credits in order to graduate. I guess it makes sense. They want to improve the standard for the people who are going. However, my class had already filled its requirements virtually by the time that my senior year came about. And then they decided to initiate the summer reading program, which of course was a requirement and part of your grade. Now, I'm not fully opposed to introducing new things to the classroom, and granted, I think that it was maybe a decent idea. However, if you know that you've already set it up so that the classes that are in this building at the moment were in a position where they had a lower standard, and you're not going to change the standard because they've already gone to a point where if they hadn't already had the extra credits, that they're not going to get them because you're only going to be able to take so many classes in a year. So the extra science, the extra math, it just doesn't fly. There wasn't any room for it. And thus, at the same note, the summer reading. Why would you then put that requirement on a class which is about to graduate, which needs less credits? Never made any sense to me to this day why they did that to my class. Now, if my class was the freshman of that year, in my opinion, that would have made more sense because they're just coming out of 8th grade into high school, new requirements were set. So if you let them start it at the freshman level, they wouldn't know anything other than that, and it would have made more sense. I always argued the point that the sophomores, the juniors, and my senior class should not have had to do the summer reading because it wouldn't make sense as far as our grading went. It just didn't make any sense. And of course, because of that, I didn't do it. And I always will stand by the fact that I wasn't going to do it. And to me, it just didn't make any logical sense to have forced my class to do so. Like I said, if you started it at the freshman level, those kids didn't know anything more, and they already had their requirements where they had to have more credits anyway. So it would make sense that you start the standard at that first level of high school and then they can continue on from there. It just would make sense. But of course, they chose not to do that. And here is my class getting hit over the head with something that the class before them did not have to do, and we had no different burden or standard, I should say, of graduation. They just threw something extra at us for no reason. Not that I'm saying reading is a bad thing, but to require the reading, making it part of your grade when you didn't necessarily even really need the credits. They just added it just to add it, in my opinion. The freshmen, of course, they would have rolled right into it and it would have been just fine. And like I said, I wasn't even talking about just my class, my senior class. The juniors and the sophomores below me, they had a lesser burden as far as graduation went. So why would you put that on them as well? You let the freshmen do it and carry it over. And then you could maintain a standard, and that's what it would have been. Now back to my kids. It seems like they spent a good portion of their summer attacking this work. Now, again, there's plenty of times when you'd go into one grade into the next and you have to sort of essentially do a little bit of a playback from the last thing that you learned in the grade before in order to sort of regenerate your mind and get yourself going so that you can get the wheels spinning again and start learning. My thing would be that it would only make sense that you did just a little bit of that. But I think that by putting enough work together so that you could blow it out in maybe a couple of days would be nice. But if my kids were to have just sat down and did all the work and did nothing else until it was complete, it probably would have taken a couple of weeks every day if they just sort of just sat down and said, okay, all I'm going to do today is this, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this and this. It would have taken at least, I would say, a good, at least maybe week two to complete the time that it would require for them to do all the work. It was a pretty good, significant amount of work. Now, do I think that it's enough work for them to have maintained a warm-up so that they could hit the ground running? I think it's a little more like, not only are they hitting the ground running, but it's almost like they're coming out of the starting blocks just like Noah Lyles from the Olympics. They're just blowing right through, and they're not just hitting the ground running. They're already probably in his 100-yard dash, I would say, in his 100-meter race, they're probably around 30 meters before they even get back to class. So they're way ahead. So they're going to be at a point where they're going to have a fairly good start to what they're doing. Now, do I think that you could ease them in a little bit for maybe the first week or two and you could have gotten them right to the spot that they're at now? Probably. And would that have added a little bit less stress over their summer? Definitely. So what are we doing? Are we going to overload the kids with all this work early? Apparently so. I think that it would be a little better if you say, gave them a little less. Granted, give them some, but just less. So I want to know what's going on with so much of this work. Not to mention that they have to already have all this stuff that they have to bring in as far as school supplies, which is something that even my school, when I went to school when I was a kid in New Jersey, they're even getting supplies. And it's strange because it seems like before you just had to bring in a whole bunch of pens and pencils for yourself and paper and whatever notebooks you're going to use, and you're good. The teachers had at the time they had chalk. Very few teachers actually had whiteboards when I was in school, and the smart board did not exist, which they have now, which really makes me wonder the need for even the whiteboard markers, the dry erase markers, because it seems like the smart board is the thing to go around now. So the fact that they have to buy paper towels and wipes and all that other stuff, and crayons and markers for what goes into a gigantic bin for the entire class, that seems to be a bit much. What is going on here? Where are we putting our money from the school at if we have to then buy extra supplies? I don't understand it. Teachers shouldn't be required to have to do all of that either. You would think that the school districts would be able to manage such things. It just seems like if you own, let me see, let me think of something. If you're the guy who owns a paint, yeah, that's it, a painter. Let's say you're a painter and you paint houses. Now, if you, no, not the painter itself, excuse me. Let me go to a paint supply store. Better still. The place where you go pick up the paint, right? Now, it seems to me, no, that's not even a good example. I got it. An auto body shop. That's the perfect example. You own an auto body shop, and the customer comes in, they say, I want my car painted blue. And you say, not a problem. You supply me the blue paint, and I will put it on for you. Huh? What? Every time. I need my car to be black. Okay, here's the black paint. You go get it, and then I'll put it on. Essentially, that's what you're saying to the school. It's like your basic thing, like paper that you need for class. You're telling the kids that they got to bring that paper in because there isn't any in the school. Like, what? What are we doing with this? Why? Why are we doing this? Just doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. I'll never understand it. But it's the world we live in now, so just gotta deal with it. But I really want to know what's going on with that. Finally, the last piece of the main event. The one that makes me the most nervous of all. Now, last night I enjoyed a nice comfort meal, and I think that a lot of people love this. It's just high carb as you can get. I had some toast. And boy, when you really want toast and you get nice toasted bread and put just the right amount of butter on it, there's very few things that are better than that in life in general. But man, this toast just hit the spot. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I could not have asked for better. Another food that is like that is the cup of noodles. You know the ones. Little used to be styrofoam, now they're cardboard containers. You pour the hot water in, or you can put it in the microwave, heat it up, tear off the lid, get yourself a fork, and go to town. All kinds of flavors: shrimp, beef, chicken. I personally enjoy the beef ones and the chicken ones above all. Those are my two favorites. The only ones I eat: beef and chicken. And because of that, Cup of Soup has done something that, well, seems to be a question mark for me. And I had to address it in the only way I knew how, which was, at first I just took pictures of it and I was going to be like, what is going on here? And then I took the brave approach and said, you know what, I'm going to buy one and I'm going to try one. However, my brave approach has not been that brave because I have yet to try the cup of soups that I'm talking about. Turns out that the good old Cup of Soup brand came up with 3 limited edition flavors, 2 of which I would never put anywhere close to my mouth. Those 2 are pancake, sausage, eggs, and syrup. Now, I know what you're asking. So, they put the pancakes in the same container with the eggs and the sausage and put some syrup in it, and then you have to heat it up? No. Remember, I said this is the Cup of Soups. So, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Those soups with the dried ramen and the flavor inside, and they have little pieces of chicken and more beef, and then you put the hot water in them. Now, these soups that I'm talking to you about, the pancakes, eggs, sausage with syrup, it's the noodles. And you put the water in it. And that's supposed to taste like pancakes, eggs, sausage with syrup. And I will not partake in such a horrible thing. I'm just not going to do it. The other one that makes me even more cringeworthy is everything bagel. Yes, I said everything bagel. Bagel inside of a Cup of Soup container. Meaning that this is still going to have the same principle applied to the chicken Cup of Soup. It's just some sort of bagel type food. And to make matters worse, I personally hate cream cheese. It nauseates me. The smell gets to me. I really don't like cream cheese at all. And this everything Cup of Soup also has some sort of cream cheese element to it, and I don't even want to know how it works. I'm never going to find out. I'm never going to buy one. And that's just that. But there was a third type that seemed a little less offensive, but still pretty bad. And I actually have plans on trying it. I was planning on making a video for this for the last 2 weeks, and I just couldn't get my mind around it. And I haven't done so yet. But as of the fact that this episode is coming out, I'm going to have to go ahead and brave the elements and do it. Yeah, I put it to the point where I wasn't even going to do my No Mercy pizza review, because instead of doing the No Mercy pizza review, I was going to do the review of this Cup of Soup. Now, the flavor in question is s'mores. Yes, the graham cracker, chocolate, marshmallow, campfire treat. They've made it into a cup of noodles. And that's the one that I'm going to brave. But I haven't yet. And boy, I'm not looking forward to it in any way. I'm really not. But it's just like when you're in an athletic event, no guts, no glory. And I'm just going to do it. Probably going to do it as of the day this episode releases. Probably going to do it on the 24th of August. I'm just going to do it. I'm highly skeptical that this is going to taste like anything that I'll ever want again. But you know, if it does taste like something that is somewhat acceptable, will I kick myself for not having done it before? Because these 3 are limited edition, so it's not going to last too long. Am I going to be upset that I didn't buy more of them? No, not really. Because it just doesn't seem right. I'm going to use a line from Jurassic Park, not my favorite movie in the world, but the line, it has a lot of importance to it, and it certainly relevant in a lot of cases, especially this one right here. And the line is, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And that's what Cup of Noodles has done right here. Just because you can make a s'mores cup of noodles, just because you can make an everything bagel with cream cheese cup of noodles, just because you can make a pancakes, eggs, sausage with syrup cup of noodles, doesn't mean you should. And on that note, I'm going to ring the bell on the main event, and hopefully by the end of tonight I will have a video up, and it will have me testing the s'mores cup of soup. Okay. One of the most interesting places in jail is the day room. What does that mean? Day room is the big open area inside of a cell block where inmates can congregate, can move around outside of their cells for for some recreation. Usually there's a TV inside there, several TVs, maybe like 2 or 3, a whole bunch of tables, and some of that really awful furniture I talked to you about. Big plastic things to sit on. A lot of times they'll just talk, play cards, drink coffee, mill around, talking to the other inmates. Now, during this time when they're in day room, this is when all the shenanigans can take place, if you will. That's an interesting term to use, but it's the one that seems to come to mind. This is the one where when inmates play cards, they can then gamble on things and put up money in the form of commissary because they don't have any cash or access to credit cards or such things. The closest thing they can do is have somebody put money on the other person's books, and that's also something that they don't do very regularly. It just makes it seem a little obvious, but from time to time it probably happens. Also, when they're out and about, this is the situation where people can get into fights on the block. People can find themselves in positions that are uncomfortable, and there is less opportunity for an officer to, say, be able to monitor what every inmate is doing at every time. Even on the small blocks in the prison that I worked in, there were 63 guys when it was full. And granted, you have to use your peripheral vision and sort of watch what's going on. And for the most part, you can see most of the things that are happening, and then you have to do rounds. But no matter what is said, you're not going to see everything. And so, if you have a problem with another inmate, it's just a matter of clocking what the officer is doing, and eventually you might have your chance to do whatever you want to do to the inmate that you have picked out. Be it because they welched on a bet, they did something to disrespect you in some way. Maybe even you're a hired gun for one of the gangs in the jail, and you have to go and perform what the gang needs you to perform on the inmate that they have selected. Either way, you need to continuously have your head on a swivel and watch your back. As relaxed as it may seem, you really are in a place where you can't let your guard down in the day room. You have to be on. And this puts a bunch of silent stress on you as an inmate. I can promise you, as the officer on the block, that silent stress, you're not necessarily afraid of what's going to happen, but you have such a level of awareness of what could happen that even when you're relaxed, you're still on edge. So, as an inmate, it would be so much worse because the officer doesn't necessarily have you singularly in mind. That officer has to now focus on everybody. And like I said, even in the small blocks, there's 60 plus people. The bigger blocks in the jail I worked at had over 120. You're not going to singularly focus on one person unless you have reason to. And that reason isn't always obvious. So the chances of you focusing on one person out of 60 or 120, it's not real good. So there's a chance that if you're into something or up to something or in trouble, that officer may not be able to help you out immediately. And most guys aren't going to snitch, as they say. So you may have to take something that you might not want to. And because of that, the day room is a place of comfortable uncomfortableness, if that makes any sense. Relaxing on edge, if that makes any sense. And I would have to say that if there was a reason for me to be uncomfortable, day room is probably one of the biggest reasons to be uncomfortable. Thus, I can only tell you this, like I've told you 40 plus times before. In order to avoid a situation like that, don't go to jail. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the Spear of the Week. It's going to be simple and to the point. I'm not going overboard. The only person that I could consider spearing this week is whoever came up with the idea of making an everything bagel cup of noodles. That person deserves a Spear of the Week. Just period. Because why? There's just no reason for it. There is absolutely no reason for making a cup of noodles that tastes like, in any way, a bagel with cream cheese. So, whoever you are, you get the Spear of the Week. Person who designed and came up with the idea of cup of noodles with bagel and cream cheese. Now, we're going to close this showdown in one of my favorite ways by telling everybody the picture you've been staring at this whole time. is an original one of one that I've made, and I call it a left green. And the reason why it's left green is because if you look in the left corner, it's green, like a lime green. And the reason for that is because my youngest daughter, I asked her what color I should paint that one section. I painted everything except for that one section. And she pulled out the lime green. And thus, I put that left green spot over there. That's why that's left green. Now, for all of you who have not become part of the LIP Facebook group, I urge you to join us. There's always room for one more. I also need you to like and or specifically subscribe to Phil the Lip Facebook channel. I need more people to join us. Come on, become part of it. If nothing else, you can get the notifications and you'll know when the next show comes out. Join us. Subscribe to at Phil the Lip Facebook YouTube channel. I also have the Instagram Philip Henderson 5102 where I post stuff fairly regularly. And I'm out there on X somewhere. You can also find some interesting things that I post on there. It's always going to be a nice thing to join us because if you like the content, hey, support it, right? That's the way I figure it. There's plenty of podcasts that I listen to, and I do my absolute best to subscribe and like every chance I get. I would only hope that you who are listening to my podcast would do the same for me. Now it is time for the words of wisdom for this week. These words of wisdom go to the genius who came up with these limited edition cup of soups, s'mores, everything bagel, and the pancake one. Because clearly, somebody had to think of it, and somebody had to approve it. So, they're sitting in a room together, and this all came out and became what they consider a good idea for a limited release. And I have words of wisdom for those, at bare minimum, those two individuals. It's good to know that the two of you share one brain. Problem is, the last one who used it seems to have misplaced it. Once again, for the people who came up with those cup of noodles, the words of wisdom are, it's good to know that the two of you share one brain. Problem is, the last one who used it seems to have misplaced it. And on that note, I'm going to go and take a nap. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I remind you again, subscribe at Phil the Lip. My name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lip.